everybody and welcome to my new filming location. This is not permanent. This is the sun is setting outside. As you can see from like one side of my face is like yellow, and my bookshelf's behind me. This was impromptu. This whole thing was impromptu. I'm not wearing any makeup. I was actually planning on filming this tomorrow when the weather said it'd actually be sunny, not like today. They said it was going to be like 20 degrees and raining. So here I am with the sun next to me. So I'm not like I'm filming in my pajamas. In April, I read 14 books and, well, technically 14.5, we'll get into that later. And I generally enjoyed all of them. I realized that I either read new adult contemporary or fantasy, and I actually like it. I'm pretty sure they're my two main genres that I like jump between now is new adult and fantasy. Sometimes it's new adult fantasy. Hashtag Wicked, Jennifer L. Armentrout should have gotten a sequel back in 2015. The first book I read was The Winner's Crime by Marie Rakowski, and this is the second book in the Winner's trilogy. I've realized that with this trilogy, you really need to marathon them to know, well, for me, I really need to marathon them to know what was going on, because The Winner's Kiss was going to be released in March. Because The Winner's Kiss was going to be released in March, I decided I was going to reread the whole series because I like this series, but I didn't necessarily love it. But on my reread, I absolutely loved the first book, I loved the second book, and it really got me hyped up to read the third and final book because, oh my god, I was finally going to get everything I'd been hoping for, and oh god, yeah. So the next book I read was Biggest Flirts by Jennifer Eccles, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so on a scale of really shitty to The Distance Between Us by Casey West, which is BTW, my favourite contemporary book ever, this was a solid 8. I liked it. I really, really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the storyline, and I really enjoyed Will because he was perfect. I love the humour in this book. I love the Arthur inside joke because of his Minnesotan accent, and every time they mentioned that, I lost it. But I really enjoyed this book. The only thing I really didn't like about it was Tia, the main female character, whose point of view it's from. She was very kind of she jumped from thing to I don't know, sometimes her mind was a mess to be in. And even though I loved the book and she's got a great sense of humour and I loved reading from her perspective, it just kind of annoyed me sometimes. So, of course, the second book I read was Perfect Couple by Jennifer Eccles, which I also gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this installment. This whole trilogy, the Superlatives trilogy, is a companion trilogy. So the 3 books follow each girl in this friendship circle, well, triangle, Illuminati confirmed, and I really, really enjoyed this because all the characters are so intertwined. I love this book. Again, the female characters kind of annoyed me. And finally, I read Most Likely to Succeed by Jennifer Eccles, which I also gave 4 out of 5 stars. For the first time ever, I actually was not annoyed with Kay, who was the final girl in this friendship triangle, and the narrator of this book. I really, really liked her. She was very, very intelligent, and I loved Sawyer, and Sawyer was the one character that I just really wanted a story for. He was so nice and just loving, and oh, I loved him so much in all the previous books, and you knew that there was so much about him that he didn't let on, and I'm just totally up for a slacker redemption story, people, guys especially, who have hidden smarts, and with Sawyer, I loved it. The next book I read was Sloppy First by Megan McCafferty, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I actually had the physical book, but they were my teachers, she gave me the whole series, and I gave them back to her already, so picture of it. I enjoyed this. It reminded me so much of the Angus Thong series, but unfortunately it was very, I don't know, the main character Jessica felt a bit too young for me. Normally I've read books with main characters 16 years old, but this actually, the voice was so true. It was so true that it felt like she was 16 years old, and I'm friends with 16-year-olds, but whoa, she felt really, really young, and what made it really weird is that I could see myself in her to the point where, like, she'd say a joke and I'd be like, same. And then I'd realise, oh my god, am I that bratty whenever Jessica was being bratty? Then I realised, yeah, I was being bratty. But that was 13 to 14 years old. Not 16. I think I'd matured by 16. But I did like Jessica. I did like the first book. It was a fun read. It was interesting, but still a 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. So I decided to go on with the second book, Second Helpings by Megan McCafferty, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, and this one was definitely better than the first book. She was older because the books do go up with Jessica's age. I think the next one, which was like Third Helpings, which I think followed her when she was 19 years old, or like she had just started college or something, but I did enjoy Second Helpings. It was much more like, I don't know, it had a lot more heart in it than the first book, and probably because she was around my age, I was like, oh yeah, I see myself in you, you've matured a lot, and I really loved the relationships in this book, and this was an okay book. I liked it more than I thought I would, especially after I finished the first book. Next, I was in the mood for some new adult, and I looked on my handy dandy iBooks iPhone, handy dandy iPhone, which has iBooks in it. I realized that I had a lot of new adult saved on there. Like, I had like trilogies and series, and I was like, oh, might as well. So I decided to read the Addicted trilogy by Krista and Becca Ritchie. Yeah, the first book I read was Addicted to You. Yeah, by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the way it handled an addiction. I loved how true the characters were. It was hilarious. I loved the characters. I loved the plot. I loved how they didn't shame Lily for her addiction. And I know that a sex addiction is kind of like a weird and obscure like addiction to have, but I loved how people handled it. Like, it was a real addiction, not like it was a bad life choice. And a lot of people in this book, you did see the comparison of the bad life choice and like the addiction, like the two people who thought which one was which, and I just loved this book. It was such a good book. I loved it. So, of course, I decided to read the second book, Addicted for Now, by Krista and Becca Ritchie, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Didn't like this as much as I liked the first one. It was very draggy up until the final 100 or so pages. Well, not final 100 or so pages. As soon as the, like, drama started going up with like who's like blackmailing who and like who the mysterious texter was, I started to get more and more interested, and finally like the climax of the book, which is unfortunately like the final like 50 pages, I really, really, really enjoyed. Unfortunately, that did not happen sooner, so this dropped down a star for me. And as per recommended reading order, I then read Kiss the Sky by Krista and Becca Ritchie, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. It follows Lily's older sister Rose and Connor Cobalt, who was introduced in the first book. I really liked this book, but the plot was very kind of like, we want to put something in here just because we want to write another book. It was like the reality TV show trope, and it's not even a trope. I've never read about like a reality TV show kind of book before, but this one, it was, okay, the writing in this book was that good that it left me feeling angry, because one character in this book does something really, really heinous, and it's in the final stretch of like 100 pages that, oh god, I just got so angry, and the book ended and there was no proper resolution. I was like, oh my god, how can you make a character that evil? The next book I read was Hothouse Flower, which The next book I read was Hothouse Flower by Becca and Krista Ritchie, whatever their names are, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This follows Daisy Calloway, who is the younger sister of Lily and Rose, and I really, really enjoyed Daisy in the previous books, although she seemed a little, like, I liked her, I loved her character, and I loved reading from her perspective. I will say about this book, though, is that at this time, this is book number 4. This is book number 4, okay? Yeah, 4. This is book number 4 that I've read, and I got so annoyed and exasperated that this series has gone on for that long, and this whole series goes for about 9 books, and I'm like, okay, if this is like me getting annoyed now, how am I going to be annoyed at like book number 9 or something, which is Long Way Down by Becca and Krista Ritchie, whatever their names are. I haven't read it, which moves me on to the next book, Addicted After All by Krista and Becca Ritchie, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I need to be totally honest here, I don't really remember anything that happened in this book. I remember the ending. That is it. That is all I remember. I really actually do not remember the main plot, what happened, nothing at all. I remember nothing. Because this series is going on for like another like 1,005,000 bloody books, I decided that I was going to read the epilogue to Long Way Down by Krista and Becca Ritchie. It's like 10 pages on ebook, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's tiny, but it's quite nice in length. I really enjoyed the epilogue, but the final, like, page reminded me so much of the ending of Weeds. The next book I read was The Winner's Kiss by Marie Rakowski. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so close to being a bloody 5 out of 5 stars. So close. I really enjoyed this book. I was waiting for it for ages. Even when I didn't necessarily like the first book or the second book, I was still waiting for this book because the main problem I had with the first and second book in terms of like the plot, and that was like the point of like probably the writers, she really wanted to like build up that angst with like, oh my god, they're not communicating, was, yes, communication. Literally, the characters do not communicate at all in the first and second book, and the one thing I wanted to see in the third book was communication, and it happened. It happened. They talked, and I'm pretty sure that exact quote is, they talked long into the night or something. But I was so happy to see that they bloody just talked, they solved their problems, and everything was nice, and I'm so happy on how this ended. Oh, I'm so much. Oh my god. Yay. Hello, everybody. I just realized that the footage of me just doing my glittering court review for my wrap-up, the camera stopped filming because it has like a 20-minute like film thing and it'll automatically stop. I realized when I was looking through the footage that it went over and I hadn't even like picked up the book before it like went like dead basically. So I decided I might as well do it now. Let's do this like an actual like wrap up. The next book I read was The Glittering Court by Rochelle Mead, and she is the same author who did the Bloodline series and the Vampire Academy series, and I love those two series, so I went into this book with very high expectations. Alas, the plot that was put on the synopsis, like the official synopsis and the blurb, that was really only the plot for the first third of the book. After that, it was something completely different, which I didn't necessarily hate, but it was very like, whoa, I was not expecting that. You know those epilogues in like trilogies or series that they go for like 1,000,000 pages and they may as well could have been a novel in and of itself? Yeah, well, the 2/3 of this book that weren't the synopsis from the blurb were legitimately that. And finally, the last book I read was Baby Not by Colleen Hoover, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was a good book. The only thing that really kind of bugged me was that it was so reliant on Maybe Someday, which was the book that this is like the novella of. The reason it lost a star is because it jumped a lot, and if I hadn't read Maybe Someday, I would have gotten really lost in terms of like one chapter in Maybe Not would be set at the start of Maybe Someday, and I'm not even joking, the next chapter was at halfway through Maybe Someday, and I was like, whoa, okay, let's calm down for a minute. But I did ultimately love the characters. I loved Bridget, I loved Warren, and I didn't get to love those two in the first book in Maybe Someday because they didn't have that much page time, and that was very unfortunate, but I did love them. This was a fun novella, it was light, it was fluffy, it's 120 pages, like, it was a really nice thing to get me out of that fantasy mood. At 100 pages of a book in April that I'm definitely, like, it's May now, like, I'm definitely gonna finish it now unless I go back in time, and I don't have... Okay, the dust jacket's up there, I'm like, where's the dust jacket? The book that I read in April, kind of, was Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I'm right now 250 pages in. 250. That's okay. That's a good page to be at. I'm hopefully going to finish this in the next week or so. Maybe maybe not. I will, yes, finish this in May, so that will be my May wrap-up, but this was the 0.5 book, because it technically kind of counts. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you didn't mind my new filming location, as I was like slowly moving back throughout the whole video. I'm legitimately sure I was back here at one point, and then up here the next. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you have a great day, or a great sunset if you're living in Melbourne, and your sunset is like the solar force of like... what's really bright?